Hello, this is Julia Bushkova, and I welcome you all to my next video, which would be about resetting the right hand. As I was speaking in the previous video about the left hand resetting, why resetting rather than setting is because I teach college conservatory level students, and thus they have been already playing for quite a few years. And so certain bad habits can creep in, even if they started perfectly great. That's kind of normal. At some point we need to look at the technique and make sure everything works really well. There are two main reasons for that. The first reason is that if we leave something unchecked, or if in this case right hand is functioning improperly, not very ergonomically, then it will at some point lead to problems in the right hand technique, just very simply. For instance, some bowings may suffer, your basic détaché may suffer, your tone production would suffer, and so on and so forth. And the second reason, also very important, that if something functions improperly in the earlier developmental level, when somebody goes to really hard pieces and they have to start doing more and more and more intricate movements, it may, and usually does, lead to pain. It leads to full impairment going up the shoulder and upper arm and so forth and so on. So we want to prevent all of this, and thus go to reset some improper habits, make the hand function better. Today I'm going to be assisted by my lovely freshman Olivia, and together we will show her progress from where she used to be before in her right hand and where she is now. For that, actually, I would like to show a little clip of Olivia's playing before she came to UNT. Do I have your permission to do that?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so let's watch the clip. As you can see, Olivia's main problem is that her index finger is much separated from the rest of her fingers. So it looks like there's a big gap between the index finger and the second finger already, and the second, third, and fourth kind of function as a clump, as both all together. So again, I would repeat, this kind of setting is very common for many people who have whatever imbalance in the right hand, and it actually is caused by usually the one main factor in this particular bow hold is that the bow may be very heavy. It also can be, of course, brought to life by the fact that people just start playing with the bow too soon. They may be in the orchestra, they start in the 5th grade or 6th grade, whatever, and they just start playing and they don't spend enough time doing proper work on the bow hand setting. But a lot of times the heavy bow will do that. So now other situations which Olivia didn't have are, for instance, having the bow hold like this. Again, in this case, the third finger goes to the fourth to help manage the weight of the bow. But in your case, it was clearly all three fingers went together and the index was very separate. So tell me, please, consciously, were you in any way uncomfortable before playing, or not really? Or how did you know that there was some kind of problem in your bow hand, and not really?
I didn't experience any kind of pain or discomfort. I think it just messed up my tone quality and the smoothness of my bow changes, because my index finger was always pressing. But I wasn't in any pain. It was just the way I played, so I got used to it.
Exactly. Well, and it's perfectly normal and good that Olivia wasn't in any kind of pain. She's very young. So usually pain happens after age of 25, 26, if we don't prevent it earlier. Okay, great. But yes, you were aware, you were telling me that you didn't like that, what you call the stuttering sometimes was happening. Yes. Here, right in the middle of the bow jumps a little bit. And okay, so as we also saw in the film, in the little clip, rather, of Olivia's playing, she tends to have her elbow kind of lowish. It was on the lower level, and her wrist was a bit too high. Correct? That was another thing. So here we were dealing with several things at once. So the lifting of the bow was primarily the problem and led to this. And then in addition to it, not related to the bow weight of the heaviness, was this situation with the elbow. Do you know why your elbow tended to be so low?
I think I just did it because it was just comfortable. You know, it's not natural to have this all the
To
time.
have it.
And just to get, I guess, a louder, bigger sound. And so I just like felt like, oh, I need to be here.
Correct. And I think you also told me that at some point you heard it from somebody, maybe in master class or one of your teachers, that the weight of the arm would help you, right? Exactly. And so this is something we don't want to get into right now. But yes, sometimes it's a good image to think about the weight of the arm, but it's not good when people start doing literally putting the arm down, because of course it leads to discomfort really in playing. Okay, so let's now look at the steps that we took to remedy the situation. So, and here again I would ask Olivia to tell me, what do you think helped you the most? We did several things, correct?
I think the first thing that helped me the most was coming from above.
Correct. So coming from above, that's for the placement. Let me help you. So we put the bow here and in a big circle. And you meet the bow, and then you, good, excellent, perfect hand, great. And so that was helpful, right? That was helpful for just a regular beginning, right? Okay, you can hold it now. Wonderful. I know that I always tell my students to use the paintbrush motion, right? The natural movement that we do as if we are painting a fence or something. And again, I have that in one of my first videos in the bow hand part 1, 2, or 3. Bow hand bits and pieces, I think it was called back then. So that was also very helpful, correct? All right. And with that, I believe you told me that you really liked playing several bows in each part, or practicing in each part of the bow. We divide the bow in 4 parts in this case, and Olivia will be playing in each bow part, correct? Could you show us one of the parts? Okay, so we will do open strings. Very good. Okay, and now you can go to the part number 2. Okay, good. So subsequently you go to other parts, right? And what happens at the tip, of course, we will start pronating more, right, to get more sound, but retaining basically the same nice smooth movement. Was there a change for you when you were playing at the tip, when we start first playing at the tip, in terms of your pinky? Were you holding your pinky before on the top of the bow before, or was it off before, and how is it now?
I would lift, just rest it off my pinky, and if I was coming from tilted, I would go more flat.
To the flat.
Just use my
Correct.
finger pressure.
So that was before, or is it now?
That is now.
That is now. Okay, so now to this we want one correction actually. You may tilt or tilt actually less to go to flat here. You may do this, but I do not recommend to do it because you are bending the wrist. Too much bending of the wrist is not good at all. So actually we want to preserve our hand as close to one position as possible. And so at the tip here, we don't want to do too much of this. So you see, if you think, oh, I should do this, no, you don't need to do this. You can keep your tilt. And just lean for more sound, correct? Let's see how that happens in there. And this little paintbrush stroke, as you can see, is still present. Okay, it's probably not going to be enough bow here. Okay. Can you get a little bit more sound there, like a crescendo or a mezzo forte sound? And a little bit more bow. Correct. Now, when you're lifting the bow, it's very important that your fourth finger does come back. So what you don't want to do is playing here on the string and then lifting it with the help of the third, then becomes third, right? Because it's the closest one to lift. So yeah, you put the finger back and you lift with it, okay? So now, not to skip any stages of our resetting. So what the most important thing that we did in the beginning, right? We were balancing the hand. So how come Olivia right now doesn't have this anymore? The thing number one that we did, we went away from the frog, didn't we?
Yes.
Because your bow is heavy. So let's see, right now Olivia has progressed already back to the frog pretty much, but we started, I believe, all the way in here. Exactly. So right in here, the main thing was to have an almost equal distance between the second and first finger, index finger, and third and fourth especially. So there is this kind of sense of balance. So you can do the what we call a seesaw, right? I mean, you can feel how these two fingers can manipulate the bow very lightly and nicely, yes. And your fourth finger now is wonderfully supported. When we first started to move, to close the gap, to move these two fingers out, your fourth finger, as I recall, of course, went to sort of like this position. It was just too heavy, it wasn't used to it. And to hold it, then she had to use a lot of pressure on all fingers, just like, okay? So in order to avoid this, of course, we need to move to the light part of the bow, and then gradually play like this for a week, probably you play like this, and even in the orchestra. Yes, Olivia still has to play in the orchestra, just like all these students who are reciting anything still have to go to the orchestra and play there. And meanwhile, she was playing like this, and then we gradually moved her back while she was separately doing exercises to increase the endurance and the strength of the pinky. So that exercise was from here and increasing the weight, correct?
Yes.
Can you show that? Going higher.
Higher.
Higher as you need, to be successfully demonstrating. Yeah, from here, and then gradually going to the full weight, feeling how that full weight is held by the pinky, and then either continuing it, yes, moving your whole hand and just relaxing in there, and then going back using the pinky, yes, exactly, right. So by now her muscle of the fourth finger is much better, much stronger, the finger is in good shape, and then you of course go all the way up gradually, right? Exactly. So that is very important. I recommend to do it to anyone who has a problem with this kind of pinky or any kind of other stuck pinky. Just go into upper lighter portion of the bow and then gradually return back. And now Olivia is almost back. And in fact, it is not necessarily good for all of us to play right at the frog like I do, for instance, and my schooling was just that way. But a lot of people now hold the thumb on the thumb grip and not exactly by the frog, which is perfectly good, perfectly okay, especially in heavy bows. Okay, wonderful. And there, that was another exercise that Olivia was doing, and you also really liked it, right?
Yes.
That was the gingled exercise, okay? So can you show that? That exercise is for learning how each finger, what function each finger has on the bow. Okay, very nice. So yes, each finger knows when it's needed and when it's not needed. And of course, in the gingled exercise, when we're at the tip, it's understandable why sometimes we go to this position. We kind of don't want to go there, again, that risk of being wrong. But it's understandable why, because we don't have support of other fingers being there, and sometimes it's just awkward. It feels like it will slip over, right, if we don't do a little bit of this wrist bending. That's okay. It's just mainly for the function of the fingers. Wonderful. So to sum up, we did the paintbrush as a main guiding, right? Guiding movement. Then we did
the gingle exercise.
The gingled exercise, very helpful. Then there was the descending onto the bow from above. That was really to keep the shape, to keep the right shape, because when we do this motion, we always come into the correct shape and not, for instance, turned this way, that way, because we can turn different ways, correct? And last but not the least, we also moved your elbow somewhat up, didn't we? Yes, and for that, you were doing just plain kind of standing in the middle of the bow, correct? Was it E string, A string, and you were checking which points here to make sure that, do you remember which, what were you checking to make sure that you're on the right level?
I was checking the level that the right arm was in, especially going to the G string, but not having this, just
correct.
Keeping the same shape.
Correct, because we were doing this in the middle of the bow. So when we are in the middle of the bow, we have to have flat wrist, and the point of the wrist, hair of the bow, and the elbow should be about the same plane. So here, there, there, and there. Again, I'm talking about this in one of my videos on the détaché and the bow hand, but yes, that was all helpful.
Yes.
So wonderful. We have a different bow hand now. Congratulations. I hope this video has been helpful, and I will see you all later.